Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Lime 3DS. And Lime 3DS just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Lime 3DS 2109 is the latest update. On Android, they added an option to adjust the size of the on-screen buttons, as well as the opacity of them. And they say here, this update introduces a regression in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon while using Vulkan. They recommend using OpenGL instead. And there's a change here that results in extreme performance improvements for several games. So as for the performance improvement, they say it's between 2 to 4 times for specific games, like Luigi's Dark Mansion, Kid Icarus, and Paper Mario. This change also appears to affect Android. This person was reporting 10 frames per second before the change in Kid Icarus and 30 frames per second afterwards. However, in other areas, the performance difference wasn't that great. Here it was 14 frames per second before and 16 frames per second after. Now, if this change sounds familiar, it's because it is. The exact same change was made over in Pablo MK7's Citra fork. In fact, it was the same person who made the same change over on Lime 3DS. And interestingly here, Gamer64, who was behind Lemonade 3DS, helped implement the touch control's opacity option. So both Lime 3DS and also Pablo MK7's fork of Citra are 100% free and open source, and I'll drop both in the description below. Let me know which one you think is better. Next up, we're talking about emulation on the App Store, and we talked about this one the other day, when iGBA officially launched on the App Store, and there was a bit of a controversy surrounding it. iGBA turned out to be a copy of GBA for iOS, except with ads in it. And fun fact, this emulator has already been removed from Apple's App Store. They were pretty quick to take it down. Unsurprisingly and disappointingly, this does not seem to be a unique occurrence. The floodgates for fake emulators on the App Store seem to have been opened up. For example, this is My Boy, a GBA emulator you may recognize from Google Play. On the App Store, this may not be the same version of it. For example, there's 2 reviews here that say it's different from Google Play. And the same creator here has also made another GBA emulator called John GBA. And yes, you guessed it, John GBA is also on Google Play. And I'm almost willing to bet that the John GBA on the App Store is different than this one. So while it's arguably nice to see emulators hitting the App Store, it's super unfortunate that the emulators we are seeing are not the right ones. To be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised that Apple acted so quickly. It's a big difference from Google, where Google has flat out fake emulators on the App Store and doesn't do anything about them. Here's a PS3 emulator with over 1 million downloads on the Play Store, and guess what? It is fake. And pretty much every single emulator from MK Applications appears to be fake as well, and they're all up. And we've talked about these ones months ago. We've talked about them a couple of times now. And on a quick side note, for those of you who are wondering, and I do get asked this one quite a bit, no, there is no current PS3 emulator on Android. There's no Xbox 360 emulator on Android. There's no PS4 emulator on Android. There is no PS5 emulator on Android. There's no Xbox Series X emulator on Android, and there is no Wii U emulator on Android. Not yet. And speaking about GBA, next up we're talking about a very interesting GBA ROM hack. It's called Zero Vintage Velocity, and this one just released. They say here that Zero Vintage Velocity is a remake of the 15 Courses and 3 Series Night Queen and King from the original SNES game with the Maximum Velocity game engine. If you are curious about this one and wanted to see it in action, I'll drop a link to this YouTube video in the description below and feel free to check it out. Moving on, and we're jumping from the GBA to arguably a little bit more powerful of a handheld, and that's the PS Vita. And RetroFlow, a modded version of HexFlow Launcher, a 3D-like overflow launcher for the PS Vita, has just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, RetroFlow Launcher version 7.0.1 is the latest update. And version 7 here is a massive update. So at a high level here, we've got a bunch of bug fixes, improvements, and new features. For example, better artwork scraping for retro games. and most non-CD based systems have been added. There's now easier installation and setup when using Adrenaline, and the Amiga WHD file name support has been added. This one is 100% free, it's open source, and if you are curious about it, I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Next up, this is just a friendly heads up that GameStop currently has a buy two get one free deal going on for a whole bunch of different used games. Over 9,000 used games. And these are for the Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox, and I think it's just in the States right now. Now, don't get your hopes up when you see something like Super Mario 3D All-Stars on sale, because according to GameStop, this game is not available. Next up, we're quickly talking about some gaming handheld stuff, and this is about Bazzite OS. This is an alternative OS for something like the Steam Deck that is based on Fedora. So at the time of filming, version 2.5.0 is the latest update. We've got a whole bunch of improvements and bug fixes, even surrounding the Lenovo Legion Go and ROG Ally. So hopefully for those handhelds, you shouldn't have any more auto VRAM issues. Now, Bazzite 2.5 is based on Fedora 39, and Bazzite 3.0 is around the corner based on Fedora 40. I'll drop a link to this in the description below in the event that you wanted to check it out. Next up, we're talking about Minetest and Mineclone 2, and if you were familiar with this one, it has been renamed to VoxeLibre. For those who may be unaware, Minetest is a free and open source voxel game engine, very similar to Minecraft. Now, some of you may be wondering why they changed their name from Mineclone 2, which was very recognizable in that community. And from my understanding here, they changed it for a number of different reasons, but some of the big ones were the fact that Mineclone 2 isn't a one-for-one clone of Minecraft. It's not a cheap knockoff, and they are doing kind of their own thing here. Next up, it appears we're one day closer to the release of Hollow Knight Silksong. Now, this could be nothing, but on the Australian government website, the game has been rated. We've got a PG rating with mild violence. Unfortunately, we still don't have a release date. But at the same time here, I'd rather Team Cherry take their time and develop something that we all love as opposed to rush something and release a buggy mess. Let me know your thoughts about Silksong in the comments below. And speaking about something that's currently being developed, this is Super Mario 64 ReRendered. I'll drop a link to this video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. At this point in time, details of the whole project are a little bit sparse, but they do appear to have the intro complete. And speaking about trailers and Super Mario, next up we're talking about Super Mario Sunshine 2001. And the reveal trailer for this ROM hack has just dropped. The concept of this one is pretty interesting. The description says, "Ever wonder what Super Mario Sunshine would look like if it released a year early as a Nintendo GameCube launch title?" This is a full-length original experience based on the build that was shown off at Space World 2001. If you are curious about this one and wanted to see it in action, I'll drop a link to the video in the description below and feel free to check it out. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.